Hey there, villain lovers. Welcome back to 2020 Rewind. We're taking a look at 20 more level 50 characters that I have on the City of Heroes Homecoming servers, the Excelsior Shard. This is episode 8, character 8, the second corruptor of the batch. Jinkeeze. She's a seismic blast, storm summoning, dark mastery corruptor. Based loosely upon the character Jinx from the what is it, Fearsome Five from DC Comics. So she has all kinds of magical powers that she's going to unleash upon her foes. Let's take a look at our mids build to see what the design and the concept is here. I think this overall design is nothing like special in the sense of, oh, I was going after a specific slow or debuff or minus defense or whatever. So she's got a lot of just kind of standard um, slotting, I guess, if you look at it that way for damage and that sort of thing. But the one thing I definitely was wanting to kind of take advantage of is the amount of knockback that you can get, or knockdown in this case, from this combination of powers. So you'll notice that I've got, for instance, Gale, which a lot of people might skip as a power, but I'm taking it and I'm actually turning it into a decent damage mitigation. I wouldn't say it's great damage, but you know, if the knockback, the knockdown, I've got the resistance debuff in it. A little bit of a set mule with the annihilation triple here. Give me some endurance, some damage resistance. So I've got the knockdown there. You've got knockdown throw around with, I think Freeze and Rain has some knockdown in it, if I'm not mistaken. If not, Hurricane has repel knockback in it. You've got where is it? Lightning Storm, when it fires off its big old lightning bolts, that's going to knock people down. Of course, I got Tornado throwing stuff down and around. Meteor from Seismic has a big old blasty knockback, knockdown. I think Up Thrust might also have, has a chance to knock back. So I have a lot of knocking around stuff. This character's very area denial as well. So, you're going to park yourself with Hurricane running, for instance, creating sort of a cork, in sort of a tight space. You could use it to press enemies into corners and walls, or just occupy an area that the enemies can't get through. And meanwhile, you're just dropping death upon them from range. So she's going to be doing a lot of range stuff as well. Because I think, Storm and Seismic in particular lend themselves to that. Although I do have a reason for melee, which we'll get into. But anyway, if you take a look at the power sets and the things I took everything except for Stalagmite, which is a, kind of I think it's just a single target, damage, disorient stun. It's something you could take. I didn't, but I have everything else, right? I've got Encase, Shatter, Rock Shards, and Tomb, Seismic Force, Upthrust, Tombstone, Meteor. So I've got pretty much the whole gamut. Same thing on the Storm Summoning side. I took everything except for O2 boost. I mentioned this a little bit when I was running my Poison Corruptor Venom Kiss. Storm and Poison have terrible healing abilities. So O2 boost, it's a patch up heal. It's probably like a more like a post fight heal, top off your allies type of thing. It's not that great. It's not that powerful. And if you're running Storm, excuse me, if you're running Storm, buffing and healing is not why you're running Storm. If that's what you're trying to do, if you're trying to spend your whole time running around O2 boosting, your team has a problem because you are not their healer. Okay, so use your Storm summoning as a controlling power set, as this area denial set in combination with Seismic Blast. You'll be able to control the battlefield just by pushing and shoving and knocking things around and preventing them from moving either quickly or at all. So that's kind of the main focus of this build. Other than that, I was going for a lot of different types of damage resistance and things. So kind of pop over that real quick. Let's see, get my pop-out window. So looking at my, resistances for the most part, I'm sitting here, 50, 60% across the board with most everything. That's because Steamy Mist is giving you elemental damage resistance with, fire, cold, and energy. And then you've got, I took Dark Embraces from Dark Mastery, so that's giving me some of those exotic smash, lethal, energy, not energy, but negative and toxic. And then also went the Fighting Pool, you get tough. That gives me some more smash, lethal, etc., etc. So all that stuff's adding up to, some really solid damage resistances. I don't have my Incarnate powers turned on right now, but that's going to go up even higher because I do have Cardiac. I'll click it right now just to kind of show you. So once I click Cardiac, right, I'm in 60s for sure, 50s across the board. So I pretty much have damage resistance to just about everything except for Psi. Everything else though I'm really solid with. So if you combine that with your controlling abilities, with your pushing around, knocking down, knocking back, plus I've got some to hit debuffing going on with Hurricane, and also my interface, I went with the to hit debuff from Diamagnetic. Again, we'll take a look at that in a second. But that's going to add up to some pretty solid survivability, avoiding getting hit, keeping the enemies, down and out so they can't even attack you. And then if they do attack you, you've got some solid damage resistances across the board in order to keep you alive. All right, let's dive into these powers. Seismic Blast. So the one thing you'll notice, you kind of go through, let me close the pop-out window here. So Encase has minus jump, minus fly, minus defense. So there's some mobility restrictions there and minus defense. Shatter has the same things, right? Jump, fly, debuffing, defense, debuffing. So I think when you start looking at all these sets or all these powers kind of combined, you can see that you're going to be able to restrict the mobility of your enemies pretty severely because you've got, these basic powers and kind of keep going through them in a minute. But on the storm side, to kind of jump over there, I've got Snowstorm, which can be minus fly, minus speed. That's going to keep things from moving. You got, like I said, the freezing rains dropping on people. That's got some slow to it, some minus speed, some minus defense. Hurricanes got, going to be pushing things around. They're not going to be able to run very well. They're going to get knocked over. You've got Tornado just throwing stuff up in the air. So again, you're going to restrict mobility. Lightning storms blasting things, sending them flying. So you've got a lot of things that are going to prevent things from standing up, from moving around, from flying, from jumping, from running, you name it. You're going to be debuffing the crap out of mobility. Rock Shards is your cone attack, minus defense. It has a special. The specials on the Seismic, I'm not 100% sure. I'm not familiar enough with this set because it is a newer set that Homecoming designed, I think, about a year ago. So I'm not super versed in what the specials do. I know they can essentially get powered up by, I think it's Seismic Force triggers them, or it's similar to, what is it? A lot of the power sets that are coming out now, if you attack, it lights up, special abilities, and then they're triggerable. So Seismic Force, I think, is what the special is, and it changes the effects, I believe, on those particular powers. See if it actually says it here. So Rock Shards is cone, sweeping cone, throwing rock, volley of stone. Let me zoom in on that a little bit for you. And it goes on to say they all blah blah blah. Shards do lethal damage. They also continue to suffer additional lethal over time. So DOT. If you're affected by seismic shock waves, this power will halt the shock waves. The damage over time duration will be doubled. The target cap increases to 16. The arc is increased to 120. So that's what I think the special is that it's talking about. So if you got shock waves, your seismic shock waves going, and the seismic shock waves are easy to trigger because I believe each of your like attacks can give you points of, yeah. So Encase, for instance, grants a stack of seismic pressure. I think if you get 3 stacks, it triggers your seismic shock waves around you, and then that causes amplification or alteration of your damage, or effects of your attacks and stuff. So anyway, I'm no pro as far as the exact combos that do what. It's just a fun set, I think you'll see, because you can do a lot of damage with it, a lot of this area denial, like I'm saying, a lot of this soft type of control, and just the effects, exactly what's going on. I don't know, stuff blowing up and rocks are flying, so it's kind of cool. Is there an optimal, hey, you should have waited until you had 3 stacks of seismic pressure and the targets were 60 feet away before you attacked rock shards? I suppose there's, uh, minutia like that. I really don't care about it personally. I like the set. It looks cool. It does some awesome damage, and it has some cool effects. That's what I'm all for. Entomb, this is your another high damage single target attack. So we got single target, rock shards, cone, another single target. So it's kind of your standard tier 1, 2, 3 single targets along with a cone here. So Entomb, minus fly, minus jump again, lots of damage. So if you look at Encase, Shatter, and Entomb, they're all pretty much doing the same thing. It's just that more damage, right? We got light damage, high damage, all with the same effects. Looking at the exact numbers of these effects, minus 10% defense. You've got jump speed is being jacked up by what 100% jump height, I think it is. That's being messed up by 160%. What was that? Fly 160%. So that's on Entomb. Shatter looks like the same exact numbers. Encase is a little bit less on the minus defense. It's only 5%. But between those three, 1, 2, 3 attacks, you're lowering defense 25% right there. Pow, pow, pow. So that's something you could, if you wanted to build around a minus defense strategy with Seismic, you certainly could. It wasn't something I specifically went after. But if you do combine that with freezing rain from your storm set, that's got a minus 30% right there. So, it's pretty easy to shred defense with this build. If I drop freezing rain, that's 30. You then hit them with bam, 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 and case, shatter, and entomb. That's another 25. So already minus 55% defense right there. You're stacking a bunch of movement speed debuff, slow speed, run speed, fly speeds, all getting jacked up. Plus, you got the minus resistance from freezing rain. So lots of ways to mess with targets' movement, defense, resistance is another thing that I haven't really mentioned beyond, hey, Gale, I slotted that for a chance of resistance in with the Annihilation, so I can screw around with the resistance of my enemies if I want. Of course, you do want to do that. What else we got going on here? Seismic Force is kind of your standard build-up type of power, aim build-up. So it does, to hit and damage buffing. And then it triggers if you're affected by the seismic shockwave. So you've built up those stacks. When you click this power, it shuts off the shockwaves. You get a heal out of it, and your max HP goes up for a little bit. So that was kind of an interesting thing. I'm not sure if the numbers are on here anywhere as far as what that specifically does. See, it's a hit, the damage. Yeah, it doesn't show you the healing that it provides. That was actually kind of interesting because I was not aware of that when I was first putting this build together. I wasn't going, oh, I've got to heal, and it's something I got to pay more attention to, which I'm going to try to do during the solos. To me, it was just, hey, I click this button, I get a damage into hit boost, and it triggers some stuff. Whatever, you just start mashing buttons, right? But this kind of makes it interesting because maybe you don't open with seismic force, like aim, build up, fire. Maybe you use it more defensively, or you could open with it just to get the hit point boost. But it could be a nice mid-fight buff as well. All right, so let's continue. We got Seismic Force, you got Up Thrust. Here's your AoE, so your ranged AoE. It's a targeted AoE, so no patch. You target an enemy, down range, you click this button. I think it sends this big old, flood of crumpling stone, and if I remember the animation, which is pretty cool, boom, it explodes. Again, we got minus defense, we got minus fly, we got some knockback that's coming out of this thing. Some cool stuff. 7% debuff on the defense of that one. It says KB minus 100% jump height. I'm not sure why KB 0.33, exactly what that means. I do know it can knock back, but I don't know why KB 0.33. Oh, here we go. Why is it, see that? It was giving me a different number for a second there. Sometimes Mids is bugged out like that. Knockback, mag 0.33 to target. I don't know if that's the the odds, 33% chance, because a mag .33 is not anything, right? That's not going to knock anybody down, I don't think, unless they've got zero knockback protection. So I don't know. Again, I'm not 100% sure about what that quantitatively means. All I know is it knocks back sometimes. Jump speed, right? Jump height, it's messing all that stuff up. So similar to your other powers, it's going to mess up your enemies. Tombstone, this is your snipe attack, so your longest range, extreme damage, more minus jump, more minus fly. It has a chance to stun, so that's also nice because one of the things I am going to leverage a little bit, and I talked about this with my other Corruptor that I just ran, is that I have Dark Mastery for a reason, and the reason is that I want Oppressive Gloom out of that. Oppressive Gloom is a low mag stun, but I do have some ways to stun with this build besides Oppressive Gloom. So I got Oppressive Gloom, you've got Tombstone can stun, I think Lightning Storm, when the lightning bolts discharge, that can stun people. Maybe it's, yeah, Tornado, when it's throwing people, that has a chance to stun. So I do have chances to stun here and there, and then I also have Thunderclap, which is my one other reason for going into melee with this character. So I do have Thunderclap and Oppressive Gloom to 1-2 combo melee stun. It's not my thing, like I was showing you with my last Corruptor Pandia. If you haven't seen the Pandia video, go ahead and check that one out. You'll see I was definitely building around stunning the crap out of people with that one. But this is a, a potential mitigation. So in strategy wise for that, you shut off Hurricane, you go into melee, you've got Oppressive Gloom running, you click your Thunderclap, you can stack a decent, what mag 4 stun between the two of them. And then you've got these other things that can stun, like Tornado, like I think Lightning Storm, like I said. You've got the Tombstone as a chance to stun. So you can do some decent, you know, control from more of a hard standpoint than just pushing and knocking things down. Then Meteor, that's your big old tier 9 exploding. This does have a huge knockback, 3.85. So I think it's going to knock back everybody but a boss. I think bosses have a mag 4 knockback protection. So that's where, I don't know if that would combine it with up thrust or not. It has that 0.33 or something like that. But anyway, Meteor, when it drops, kabloomy, things go flying. And it's like an extreme, pretty powerful knockback, especially against lower levels targets. So that usually gets people upset. You can, your teammates, that is, because you explode and people go flying, and you know how tanks and scrappers get if you knock targets out of melee, but they can get stuck in walls, so it is kind of a potential dangerous thing in caves. That is why with my slot, and I did grab the sudden acceleration, have the knockback to knock down to calm that down. I want the knock down, I just don't want the exploding bodies flying everywhere. But that's a great power. Some more control-y kind of stuff, some more area denial. You just drop freezing rain, you drop tornado, and then you drop the meteor right on top of a whole group of enemies. They're just being flung and exploded and falling down every which way. They're usually don't get up from that. But that'll be something, again, you'll get to see that in some of the solos and the team action. All right, let's go over on the Storm side. Here's an oldie but a goodie. Storm has been in the game since the beginning, right? So we're nothing new here. Gale, like I said, there's your cone knockback power. Most people might skip this because, oh, I don't want to knock things flying. But I just threw the knockback to knockdown in it. Plus, it's giving me a chance for resistance debuff, and it is a decent, light control power, because you can knock back a huge group of enemies and just throw them down. So I'd like to open with this sometimes. I'll just like gal them, or if like a whole swarm of ambushes coming my way, gal them to the ground. It's probably a little bit better than, let's say, clicking your Hurricane, because Hurricane, even though it's a stronger, debuff, that kind of thing, it can scatter the mobs that are coming after you. So you don't necessarily want that like in an open area. So if I got a group coming towards me, or there's a group right in front of me, I might just gal them to the ground, drop freezing rain, throw snowstorm out there, and then start unloading. Snowstorm, speaking of, toggle. It doesn't have a lot of mitigation directly because it doesn't lower to hit, it doesn't lower damage like, like dark miasma or radiation emission. Snowstorm is, just a soft control, minus speed, minus recharge. You're going to eat the alpha if this is what you open with, so you probably don't want to open with this. You can't do kind of like a little dipsy doodle with it, like, toggle or kind of click it as you're jumping around a corner because this way you'll hit with the toggle and then you'll be out of line of sight. So you can try that as one little strategy, which again we'll take a look at that in some of the solo and team stuff. But it's a good combination for the rest of this stuff that you're doing because you're gonna have all you want to keep all these things clustered with your freezing rain, with your meteor, with your up thrust. You want everything in a pocket so you can concentrate all your firepower on it. You don't want to be going total chaos like some storm builds do. Uh, you know, this is not that kind of storm build actually. So some people, and I've done this. I have a different character. I ran a Defender Sycorax. I forget way back like a year ago. I think I ran Sycorax. He was a storm beam rifle defender, and he was much more chaos. Throwing crap around, blowing it down, whatever, doesn't really care. But this is a much more controlled Stormy. So hopefully you'll get the chance to see that and see what I'm talking about. I'm trying to keep things from flying all over the place. I want to kind of keep them in an area. So I'll use Hurricane to kind of buff it and push things into an area. Or most of these kind of keep them away from me in melee. If I, am in danger or my teammates are down, I'll go with Hurricane around them and protect them. All right, so continuing, we got Steamy Mist. That's your just toggle kind of shield stealth power. So you got some defense. You're getting elemental resistance out of this. You also get confused resistance, which is nice against stuff like those succubi. And I forget which Cray it is now that throw those like confusion grenades, I think it is. So boom, this is a great power. Team stealth, you just got to watch out for it if you have to do one of those rescue missions, right? You got to shut it off in order to escort the hostage out of the map or whatever. Freezing rain, great little power here. You can drop this around a corner, which is always nice. So you're out of line of sight. Drop freezing rain around the corner. You can drop tornado around the corner. You can drop your meteor around the corner. So those three are kind of a great combo if you're looking at a tough enemy, you want to soften them up before they can get to you. And by the time they get recovered from that and they come towards you, you could drop your snowstorm on them so that they're really slow. You've set up a lightning storm, wait for them to come around the corner. Whatever. When they come around the corner, you thunderclap them with oppressive gloom. The tornado, or sorry, the lightning storm starts smashing them. Right, they're just gonna get destroyed. You gal them to the ground. Right, they're gonna be down and out. Continuing on, already talked about Hurricane a little bit, minus the hit. It's got a nice minus range, so that's a great little power. So if you are getting range attack, like that's one of the weaknesses with a lot of these builds. If you're like a squishier type, you can get pretty solid, either defenses or melee, whatever. But if you're getting range and you're getting melee and stuff is, hitting you from left, right, center, far away, close, it's really hard to mitigate all that as someone who's not a control-based, power sets, or you're not, some brute or tank or whatever. So, what's your options? You either have some like toggles, like with Dark Miasma, you can throw a toggle at range. Well, with Storm, you kind of just buffet them a little bit. You don't want to dive right in the middle of the group with Hurricane per se, but if you're kind of standing your ground, pushing things away from you, those enemies at that middle range, they're going to be, hit by your Hurricane's outer ring there. It's going to debuff their to hit. It's going to debuff their range. Now they're like, they can't even attack you with their range attacks because they have minus range. So they're going to have to try to close to melee with you. And that's when they're getting repelled. They're getting knocked back. They're suffering the minus to hit, or they need to run farther away in order to get the minus range to drop. But of course, you're not going to let them do that because you've got snowstorm on them and they can't move. You're dropping freezing rain on them. They're slowing down. They're getting shredded. You're blasting them with your seismic attacks, right? Your tornadoes throwing them every which way. So Hurricane's kind of keeping people away from you and then just allowing you to drop hell on them from medium range. You're not like a big long range attacker here. And if you're going to go for something like that, I would recommend something like Psy Attack or Psy Blast. All right, Thunderclap. I mentioned this a little bit. PBAOE. It's a boom explosion within a short range, and it does a mag 2 stun to it. So that's what you're trying to do. It's not the greatest power as is, but when you combine it with Oppressive Gloom over here, which is also mag 2, now I've got mag 4 potential in melee range. So that's what I'm shooting for. It's not what I'm building around, but it's something that I can take advantage of if I want to. If this was a crappy combo, I could easily ditch both of these powers and go with something else, right? I mean, I could go with Stalagmite, or if I wanted to leverage more of the disorient, I could take Stalagmite because that does have a faux disorient to it. So it depends what you're trying to do. I wasn't going melee storm here. I was going, medium range storm. Keep things in front of me, keep things back, and start just blasting them and hammering them, it's at that medium range there. But I could see potentially making a more melee-esque build with the Stormy, which would be kind of almost antithetical because that means you're just not going to run Hurricane at all. But it's definitely possible, right? Not something I've looked into too much. Okay, continuing, we got ourselves Tornado. This is your little pseudo pet. So you summon your little tornado, you drop it at distance, and it starts. It's way better than it was because in the olden days, you didn't have any ability to knock back, knock down this thing. So you had to just let it throw stuff every which way. So I have the sudden acceleration set in here for them to give me that knockback, the knockdown, plus the endurance boosting. A lot of my set bonuses, which I haven't talked that much about, a lot of endurance and recovery was what I was targeting. So this has some max endurance on it. But anyway, you can slot the pet sets in it, which is pretty cool. So I've got the expedient reinforcements for some more accuracy and damage. But the recharge on this is pretty solid as it is. So I didn't need to go like a bunch of recharge. Then what else we got? We got Lightning Storm. That's your other little pet, I guess. A little summonable. You just drop it right in. You can summon it wherever, have enemies come towards you, or drop it right in the face of enemies, drop it right in the middle of enemies, whatever you want. It's going to just start blasting out lightning bolts and just destroying enemies, a lot of damage. All right, last part I want to start talking about are these pool powers as well as my incarnates to kind of round out this build. So the biggest challenge I think we're having with this one is that recharge, or not recharge, the recovery and the endurance strength. So my recovery is at 3.5, which is good, but my end drain is 177. So we're looking at, 2 to 1, which is bare minimum. But I've got a lot of toggles, right? I mean, I'm running Steamy Mist, Hurricane potentially, Snowstorm. If I click that, I'm at 2.1 is my end drain, right? Now I'm less than 2 to 1. Tough, Mighty Leap maybe. I like to run Mighty Leap because then it allows me to do my foot stompy power there. You got Dark Embrace, Oppressive Gloom running, you're throwing out attacks, so endurance is definitely going to be an issue, especially, because you're more supporting with this, with this set. So you're going to be running these toggles, you're going to be attacking and things. So you need to mitigate that endurance issue. So that was where a lot of my set choices went or came from. That plus the, not knocking things flying every which way. So that's why you're seeing a lot of the sudden accelerations in a lot of these sets. But if you just kind of glance around, I've got Decimation here. It gives you max endurance, right? You've got Annihilation sitting here, max endurance. Another Decimation set. I've got some more Annihilation here. I do have the Scourging Blast that also gives some max endurance sitting here. Decimation, max endurance. It's damage on that one. Let's see, Steamy Mists. I got. Oh, the other thing I was getting, of course, is some damage resistance to some things. Let me scoot this up a little bit so you can see it better down there. So I've got Reactive Defense gives me some Smash Lethal resistance. I've got Unbreakable Guard that gives me endurance discount and resistance to energy negative. So aside from the endurance and recovery stuff, I was also shooting for as many different resistances as I could get, so I could start stacking that up as well. We've got, scoot this back down, Go. Snowstorm. Boop. All right, Snowstorm, I've got impeded swiftness. It does have the chance for smashing in there, but again, some more damage resistances with that set. Positron, recovery, damage resistance, impeded swiftness again with the damage proc in there and freezing rain. There's some more smash lethal resistance. I've got Executioner's Contract. That's got some recovery. I also took the disorient bonus with that one, so this is kind of cool. So Tombstone already has, I think, the chance to stun. Is that coming from? So Tombstone itself doesn't have the chance to stun. It's the Executioner's Contract that I put in there. So I do like that, and it's actually pretty effective. It's another Mag 2 stun that this thing will proc occasionally. What is it on a 3.5 ppm? So yeah, it's pretty solid, right? So we procking that a bunch. I do have the fast snipe on it, so I can just, I don't have to like wait for the interrupt period or whatever the hell that is. But anyway, I've got that. Plus, it gives me a little bit more range. So boom. You've got Dampened Spirits as being slotted in Hurricane for the to hit debuffing. That also has some max endurance, some damage resistance. Again, tough over here. I've got the Unbreakable Guard. I got the max hit point unique in there. Endurance discount, more damage resistance, a little bit of defense in there. Thunderclap is bringing me some more damage resistance. Weaken Resolve. Took this from the Force of Will. I've mentioned Force of Will a couple times before. I like this power set because you got the travel power Mighty Leap, but Mighty Leap also has Takeoff, which can be used as a foot stomp control knockdown power. It has Weaken Resolve, which is a nice single target debuff, so that'll help combine with some other debuffs I've got going. And Unleash Potential because I need the recovery. The regeneration is really the big thing, the self buffing that gives you. So I have that. I don't need the attacks. Like if I was running a controller, I'd probably run these attack powers here instead, but I already have a bunch of attacks, a bunch of range stuff, so I don't need it. So I'm going more for the buff side and the debuff things. So I got the Unleash Potential. Anyway, continuing on, I do also have the Fight Pool. What else did I end up taking here? So with Weaken Resolve, this has some more damage resistance. I went with the damage proc on it. You've got Bombardment, it's got some range boosting, some more damage resistance, the knock down to knock, or knock back to knock down. You got sudden acceleration again, some more max endurance. You've got Devastation set sitting here and Lightning Storm. That's going to give you some more damage resistance with the 5 slotting I put in here. I've never tried the chance for hold in here, but that'd be kind of interesting if Lightning Storm's just like holding people. Be an interesting concept. Then you've got Absolute Amazement. This is a fairly cheap build, so I just kind of glancing. I only have like a little bit of 2 purple sets in here. The Experienced Marksman, I think, is a purple. Although that shows up as rare, but I think it drops as a purple. But anyway, purple set here. You've got a little bit with the Scourging, Scourging Blast, that ATO set. So this is fairly inexpensive build if you look at it. I mean, a lot of these things are, common rare sets. So it's not anything that's going to break the bank. I mean, this is probably, if you have the purples from some other drops that you've been accumulating, we got a Ragnarok down here, which I just put in there as a matter of fact. We'll talk about that in 1 second. But for the most part, this is fairly inexpensive. I mean, if you have the purples sitting in your base storage already or in your emails or whatever, you can do this build for what, quarter billion, maybe 250, 300 million at most, I think. A lot of stuff I already had on hand, so it wasn't that big of a deal. And the ATOs you can get for under 10 million. Probably get these like 7, 8 million. Not that expensive. Anyway, so Oppressive Gloom. I took the Absolute Amazement set, put it here. It does have the chance to hit debuff, so I have that in there because I do have de-hit debuffing with Hurricane already. I do have it with Weaken Resolve. I do now have it with Oppressive Gloom. So if I'm, going to be able to debuff people just by getting close to them with Hurricane and Oppressive Gloom and shooting like a hard target with Weaken Resolve, plus in my Incarnates, I took Dive Magnetic. That has the minus to hit. So I have lots of ways to, decrease incoming fire aside from debuffing, accuracy a little bit. Just, knocking things down, pushing them back, slowing them down. Then I got the damage resistance to back me up because I don't really have a way to heal myself aside from the seismic force clicking, right? So if I get in trouble, I'm screwed. I need to then unleash total storm or run for it. Then we got Unbreakable Guard again, another endurance discount, some more, energy negative resistance. I've got the status resistance regen because, anybody who's playing a squishy needs some sort of status protection. So I do have Clarion. You'll see that in the Incarnate choices, but, this is a little bit more protection. Plus, it gives me some regeneration. Spirit Drain, I just was talking about this because when I first made this character, Dark Mastery had Soul Drain. It didn't have Spirit Drain. But since that set got remastered or whatever, I don't know, a few months back, they changed this to Spirit Drain, which is a ranged attack. So my original melee AoE I had set in there, I forget which one I had in there, but I had to dump it, and now I went ahead and grabbed, I think I had a winter set in there because the winter set, I think it was Avalanche. It had the chance to knock down. So I went ahead and replaced it with Ragnarok, and Ragnarok has a chance for knockdown as well. So you saw me use a similar strategy with my controller Phobos and also with Pandia when I was slotting Howling Twilight with the knockdown Ragnarok because it makes it a nice little control power. So I'm using that same concept, but here I'm throwing it in Spirit Train. So not only is this going to give me the damage accuracy boost, it's also going to be a nice little soft control power because it's going to cause an explosion of knockdown in the group that I target. So that's why I have it there. So it gives me yet another chance to knock down combined with everything else I'm throwing out there. And it also has some recovery and some fire cold resistance. So lots of endurance boosting, endurance recovery stuff, lots of damage resistance. I didn't specifically try to slot recharge or defense or some of those more typical things, but most of my powers are slotted to have hit damage cap, that kind of thing, or be pretty close to it, as much as I need. I'm also be relying a lot on the debuffing of damage resistance from freezing rain and that sort of stuff that I'm not too worried about damage output. I have enough that I can clear a group, which hopefully you'll see again in the solo efforts. So I'm not too concerned about that. All right, last thing we'll take a look is at the Incarnate choices. Move this up. There we are. Slide this down. Fun with mids. All right, so let's take a look here. With the Incarnate stuff, I went ahead and took Cardiac. So let me turn my effects back on over here so you can see them. So Cardiac is going to give me some more damage resistance, like you can see over here. It's also going to help me because it has endurance cost, endurance reduction, more range. Range is always nice. So with that turned on, right, I've got my recovery 3-5, endurance drain is 1-4. So I've got a nice 2.5 maybe. And then when I unleash potential, right, now my unleash potential is taking this up to 5.5, which is like 4 times what I needed with my end drain if I scoot myself out of the way. Also, unleash potential does a nice defense boost there. It adds about 10%, 12.5%, I think, to your defenses. So Cardiac, good choice, I think, on this particular build. Cardiac Core. Diamagnetic, I already mentioned this. It has the minus to hit. But more so for this build, I think, is the minus regen so that she's going to be able to take on some tougher foes this way, AVs, that kind of stuff. Because, I can debuff already pretty well with just Hurricane and buffeting them. But I don't really have anything to take down enemies that are really tough, that have a lot of regen. I do have some minus resistance, of course. I can put out damage, but this gives me that ability to slow the regeneration as well, making this a much more effective, big boss killer type of build. Clarion, I always take Clarion if I have some sort of squishy, unless there's some other reason I'm not going to take it. Like maybe the buff set has some sort of mez protection already, like let's say Force Field. But if I have a buff set, Corruptor, Defender, Controller, Mastermind sometimes, I'm going to take Clarion 9 times out of 10, unless there's some other reason to not do it. But there it is. Range and special. I like going the radial side, right? It's gonna give you status protection, more range boosting. You know, when I click this, my range and some of these powers is crazy between that and what was it, cardiac. So let's say like tombstone. What's the range on tombstone here? Go to info. Tombstone's range is 150 feet. I mean, that's crazy. You're throwing a rock 150 feet. Rock shards, I've got that up to 84 feet. That's, you know, huge. That's what, nine, I think most cones like 30, 40 feet. This is putting out the, like close to like single target attack stuff. Because yeah, most of your single target things were 80 feet. I mean, look at the range on this thing. It's 237 feet. I can't even believe that that's right. I mean, that seems off to me. But anyway, you know, you're just hurling rocks at huge distance. 168 feet for Entomb. It's disgusting. Encase is 168 feet. So you're just throwing crap across the freaking map. 168 feet on up thrust. It's disgusting, right? So boom. You can't undersell range on a range character. Then I took cryonic for this one. Kind of more just thematically speaking. Obviously, there are, you know, those arguments, oh, ionic's the best or whatever. Or maybe I could have went, I was almost thinking about pyronic because that has some more stun to it. But I went with cryonic because I do have icy kind of cold. This is the sorceress power. She is stormy. You know, she is stone. So I thought the crystally icy cryonic attack made the most sense. And I went with also it has minus speed, minus recharge on it, which fits into some of my other powers and has a chance to hold, so that's going to give me a little bit more mitigation. Support radial is the what's the hybrid I took. This has damage, accuracy, defense, so that's going to help across the board. Let me go ahead and activate that. So now your defenses are pushing 20 some percent when that's turned on, and then unleash potential takes you up to 40 some percent. So your defenses are pretty dang good once you have unleash potential and support radial clicked. Plus you're boosting your specials again, right? So specials are going to be those to hit debuffs, for instance. So if we take a look at like hurricane, its effects with all this crap going, now I've got minus 101% to hit debuff with support click, right? I mean, that's, I don't even know if that's being doesn't show it changing because of it, but it should. Let's see, hurricane. I hate when this thing like 101. What is it to hit the buff normally? I don't think it's 101. That seems a little bit extreme, doesn't it? Is it 101%? That seems damn high if it is. Anyway, you know, your specials should be jacking up that juice. So yeah, Clarion is taking it from negative 67. Let me zoom pop out. Right? So Clarion bumps it up to 101%, right? Support, the plus special on this doesn't show, I think, because I think it's based upon number of people near you. I forget exactly how these things work, but the special should be applying as well to this, if I'm not mistaken. Damage, healing, accuracy, endurance, defense. Yeah, it doesn't show exactly what the specials are, but it should be boosting as well. But anyway, Hurricane is disgusting at that point. You're 101%. And remember, I still have Oppressive Gloom potentially debuffing you. 7.5% with the proc firing on that one. You've also got Weaken Resolve to hit debuff almost another 10% there. So, you know, you can debuff pretty heavy. And I haven't even talked about the hit debuff from your interface, another 5. So anyway, you're able to layer down, I don't know what's at 120, 130, 150% to hit debuffing with all the stuff firing away, clicking. So pretty dang good. And then last but not least, I went ahead with Banished Pantheon, wrong one, this one. Banished Pantheon, right? Everybody loves Banished Pantheon. I think it kind of fits this character again. Usually when I go with lore pets, I'm trying to get something that fits the theme, not necessarily a min-maxi or a specific power that the thing has. It would be nice, like if I was going for more, you know, survivability, I probably would take something with a heal, considering I don't have one. But I like this kind of idea that, you know, she's the sorceress and you got all these these weird, you know, banished Pantheon monsters, and they're dropping these icy rains as well as this crap that she's dropping. I almost thought about maybe storm elementals, but the problem with storm elementals is they're too visually rich. They blind you. They're, if you're like you're standing there with your hurricane running and your storms are near you, you cannot literally can't see, depending on the height of your character, because they float at a certain, you know, height from the ground. And you're just blind. I've been blinded. Your teammates get blind. You can't see anything. They really need to tone down the particle effects on those storm elementals because they're just this bright, hot pink, crazy, blinding pets. All right, so there you go. That is the build. That's what we're going to be testing out today. I'm looking forward to because I think she's going to have some good survivability just because she can keep stuff away from her. And she can kind of have a little bit of lockdown just with these, you know, pseudo controls of the storm, with the minus speeds and that kind of stuff, and just the knockdown crap. All right. Hopefully there's some good stuff there for you. If you want to make one, go for it. This is the build. I'll post this up as well to the Homecoming forum so you can get the actual mids file for yourself and mess with it. I'll see you in part 2, the solo.